Hello YouTube, this is Zach, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to do an old-fashioned Q&A. I've been getting a lot of questions. I left a thing up for you guys to ask me questions in the Discord and on my channel. By the way, join the Discord if you haven't. There's all sorts of cool stuff there, and please like and subscribe. You know the deal. Come on, guys. So I'm just going to be answering some of your questions, and I want to make this a semi-regular thing to where you guys can just send me stuff and I do like a grab bag and answer some generalized things because I get a lot of questions and some of them are just too complicated to type, and this just makes it easier. I can talk about it. So without further ado, let's get started. Question number 1 from Michael Salo, a longtime follower of mine. Hello, and thank you for the question. What do you think about musical singing styles, the kind of hybrid between pop and classical? Well, I think that as culture has developed, I think there's been more of a hybridization, kind of like you said, if that's a word. Like, things have been more hybridized and there are more similarities in styles. I think that the old school classical style is kind of phasing out a little bit, and I have a lot of opinions about that I'll probably address in a later question. I think that things are converging, but there is definitely a very clear difference between what we consider classical singing technique and some of the more modernized contemporary singing techniques. In contemporary styles, things are a lot more fluid and a lot more free, whereas in classical styles, things are a little more rigid in terms of the expectations and the technical structures and things like that. With contemporary singing, people are a lot more willing to hear differences and changes and varying things up and approaching something differently than you do every time some other time. So the classical sense, it's more rigid. I don't mean rigid as in restrictive, but rigid as in like the expectations are much clearer and much more defined. A lot of times because when you're doing classical music, you're performing somebody else's composition, and so there's kind of strict rules, and in contemporary, it's not quite as uniform. Question number 2 from Niamorg 1007. What's the best way to find and strengthen your mixed voice? I've even heard from renowned and seasoned singers that mixed voice is actually a myth and is either as a result of strong head voice or controlled, airy chest voice. I don't know what to make of this. Okay, so just because someone is renowned and seasoned does not mean that they know what they're talking about, and it does not mean that they're educated on the subject. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that just because someone's popular or famous or talks well, that they know what they're talking about. There are lots of people that are professionals that don't know what they're doing. For example, I'm not talking bad about him at all. He was great. I had Matt Barlow on my channel. I interviewed him, and he told me after the interview that he actually learned some things about his own singing by watching my video because he didn't even know how to explain the types of things that he was doing. He didn't know how to articulate it. So I think that there should be a marriage between performers and educators. I don't like that fallacy that if you can't do, you teach either. That's ridiculous. I think that there's just as much space for high quality professional teaching as there is for performing. So with that in mind, to directly answer your question, mixed voice is not a myth. The mixed voice is whenever there is a more balanced combination of thyroarytenoid and cricothyroid engagement in the vocal mechanism. So the thyroarytenoid muscle is the muscle that predominantly controls what we consider to be the chest voice. The cricothyroid is the muscle that is more responsible for the fold engagement when you do head voice or falsetto, sounds like that. So there is a percentage of engagement. We don't have like an exact measuring stick for that, but you can tell based on the sound that's being created roughly how much TA and how much CT engagement there is. So in your chest voice, it's like 95% TA thyroarytenoid engagement, but in the Mickey Mouse head voice like this, it's almost all cricothyroid. If I kind of make this hybrid sound, now I'm not singing, so this sounds weird, but if I'm doing this kind of sound, this isn't fully TA, but it's not fully CT, I can put some voice behind it, but it still has this high kind of, not wispy, but lighter quality. Well, when you make that kind of sound, there's a hybridized engagement of the thyroarytenoid, the TA, or the CT, the cricothyroid. The mixed voice is where the engagements get closer to even 50-50. And when they talk about strong head voice, well, that is probably the reinforced falsetto or the head voice with strong TA engagement. We might call that the heavy mix, right? So that might be 70% CT, 30% TA, something like that. But if you move down, you're kind of in this space right here, kind of like that. That's probably, that's kind of chest voice-ish because I went past a passaggio, but you've got enough TA engagement on it to where it's still predominantly chest voice. That's probably 70% TA, 30% CT, but these things are kind of subjective because we can't measure it. I can only give you rough estimates, but the mixed voice absolutely does exist. It's not a myth at all. Some of my vocal exercises that I do with my students walk straight through the mixed voice, and you can clearly hear once they start developing it where the transition from the head voice down to the chest voice happens, and you can hear the gaps being filled in the notes in the middle. So it's absolutely a real thing. Don't listen to people say it isn't. It's very real. It's not easy, but it's real. From a decent delinquent in my Discord server, I've been singing sitting down my whole life, and it's so much easier than standing up. Do I need to worry? You should not be singing sitting down. Your posture, no matter, this chair is really nice. This is a fancy schmancy chair that's designed to keep my posture upright. I have it in a setting where I lean back in it, but if I set it where it's vertical, it doesn't even let my back go that far back, and it keeps my posture aligned. But even like this, I shouldn't be singing like this. So if you're gonna sit down, the way I've always learned is to do what we call standing from the waist up, which means that you scoot up to the edge of the chair to where you're basically, the only thing that's doing is your feet are supporting you on the ground, but your upper body isn't leaned back on the chair, and you're vertical as if you're standing up while you're sitting down. So that's standing from the waist up. The reason is that when you're leaned back, you're going to have a natural curvature in your shoulders and in your back that it's hard to avoid. Breathing is much more difficult because you don't get as much diaphragmatic motion when you're sitting down, whereas when you're standing up, the diaphragm is going to move down lower more easily, and that's going to be easier to maintain. Also, if you're standing up, you can engage your quads, you can engage your core muscles more, and use that to give a trunk, your body, a trunk of support when you're standing up and singing. That's much harder to do when you're sitting down because the gravity of the earth and your seat is absorbing a lot of that engagement, a lot of the work. So a lot of times singers, myself included, will find that they can get more productive vocal efficiency when they stand up and they engage with that gravity, and they don't flex but engage the bottom half of the body and let that be part of the support structure with the core muscles. So I wouldn't worry about it, but you're definitely going to get better results if you stand up for sure. From VSOTs, how did James LaBrie seem to fuse the rasp and his natural voice together shortly before his 1995 vocal injury? Oh, James LaBrie, don't we all love him? The honest answer is I don't know. I know that he was working with a classical teacher back then. I can't remember what her name is. I think she's passed away now, but he had a classical vocal teacher in the early parts of his career, in the Images and Words, and maybe even into the Awake era some. I also know that there was a big dispute between the producer and the band about how they wanted the vocals to be sung. I think that they wanted Images and Words to be more raspy in general, and maybe they carried that over into Awake. I can't remember, but there was definitely some kind of conflict about James using his voice like that. If I had to categorize his sound from back then, it was very nasal, but he created a lot of pharyngeal space when he sung, and most of that rasp came along with the nasality. So if I had to guess, some of that distortion or that raspy sound came from him using the nasopharynx, creating the nasal sound, but I can't tell you specifically what technique he was doing. Sorry, I just don't know. From Hananiah, how to best protect your voice and vocal hygiene / energy when you have days where you need to talk a lot in unavoidable work meetings. I often find I don't have the energy to sing after work, and sometimes my voice might be tired or feel tension. I work remotely. Hey, you know what? I work remotely too. I'm a voice teacher, but I sit right here and I talk all day. To be honest, if I teach 4 or 5 students in a day, I do not want to sing. I'm worn out. What I would say is, if you have to speak on the voice. Don't get too loud. Don't get too soft. Speak at a normal volume. Speak at a normal pace. Don't do something over the top. Use the microphone and the volume on your microphone to your advantage. Don't underspeak either. Take breaks. Drink lots of water. If you have to speak for 4 or 5 hours in a day and you're going to sing later, that's a tough proposition no matter how you approach it. Try to focus your singing habits and practices on days where you're not going to be speaking as much. Remember, you speak a lot more than you sing, and you shouldn't be vocalizing to the degree that you vocalize with singing more than 90 minutes at a time. And if you've been vocalizing all day, that cuts the amount of good hours you have in singing way down. So I would be very careful, err on the side of caution in general. I'm a cautious person when it comes to this kind of thing. Just be cautious. Is voce faringea, or pharyngeal voice, a term that exists in the vocal literature you're familiar with? And if it is, what does it refer to? This comes from Attack Protect. Pharyngeal voice, I would assume in the context that you're talking about, is a singing sound that is predicated upon a very well-raised, open pharyngeal space, the back of the mouth. You really raising the oropharynx a lot when you sing. I've never heard it referred to that way, but yeah, pharyngeal voice is absolutely a thing. Now, I don't know all this other stuff you're talking about, similar to what I refer as a reinforced falsetto. I don't know historically what that means, but I know in the modern context, pharyngeal voice or pharyngeal voice is raised soft palate, open pharynx, that kind of thing. The sounds that come from this kind of thing, really getting it open in the back of the mouth without, low larynx is this sound, right? But high pharynx kind of gives this effect. So yeah, I mean, that's a thing, but I don't know in terms of literature what you're referring to. Sorry. Last question from John Scherer. What does it all mean? It means you're going to be on my channel soon. That's what it means. John Scherer will be on the channel with me soon. You all will see what that's all about very soon, hopefully. I hope you all enjoy that when it comes. Anyway, that was fun. Keep sending me the questions, guys, and whenever I do these videos, I will keep turning them out. I hope that this all taught you something. Check out my Patreon, subscribe to the channel, like this video, help me in the algorithm, get me to 10K subscribers. I need it. That's, I'm building my career back doing this. I need you guys to help me. I offer voice lessons. If hearing me jab about these things all the time is interesting to you, hey, I'd be happy to teach you. And I promise you that I'm a lot more lenient about working with people, even if their ears aren't great, than it might sound. I just don't want to live with the conscience of just taking people's money and selling them false hope. I don't do that. So anyway, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.